Flyers and Caps year-round, and we only get Steelers and Ravens once or twice year-round. And when it doesn't go well, and I can't imagine it being much worse for Ed Frankovic here than a loss to the Flyers. But, the only thing to make it worse would be if the Steelers rub it in on a Sunday night. Ed Frankovic joins us here live via satellite to talk all things Capitals as we take a tiny little break from our football conversation here on this holiday weekend. I would say Merry Christmas, Eddie, but the Orange Grinch came down through the chimney on Wednesday. Not filthy, right?
Absolutely. I'm not happy about that. If I was playing Tiddlywink for the Flyers fan, I could discuss it if I lost. So a tough loss. I'm counting on the Ravens to come through on Sunday and make me feel a lot better for my Christmas.
Yeah, at least you could say it's a shootout loss, right? I mean, it wasn't some sort of drubbing, but the Caps did have a 2-1 advantage at one point, and a couple of giveaways because Kuznetsov, it was not their finest hour. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and that's right. In the end, it was a shootout loss, and Kuznetsov definitely had a terrible game. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. He gave the puck away a lot. He had a great chance when it was 1-0 to make it 2-0. Got a little too fancy. Got poke checked by Steve Mason, who played well in net. And he just in his own zone. He had a couple of turnovers in overtime that Braden Holtby, and Holtby was fabulous too. I thought the goaltenders were the story of the game. Kuznetsov did not play well. Coach Trotz afterwards called out his top six. And to me, that was calling out Kuznetsov and Alex Ovechkin because Kuznetsov was terrible, and I didn't think Ovi was emotionally or physically invested in the game. I thought TJ Oshie played a hard game. Nick Backstrom was up and down, and Justin Williams gave his good effort. But for the most part, the top six was not there, and I put that on Kuznetsov primarily and then Ovechkin.
Well, we talk about this all the time, like turning it on, turning it off. And I remember for years, many years, Ed, it was always the Ovechkin report the day after a game, right? Like, and in the years when their offense first started to explode 5-6 years ago, those nights when Ovechkin was scoring goals and he was the best player on earth and nobody could catch him and all of that stuff. Now we don't talk as much about him because there is this complimentary cast. There is this system. They do have a coach who tries to motivate, moves guys around. They did bring guys like Kuznetsov and Burakovsky through the system and bring in guys like Orpik and Niskanen and even Justin Williams from the outside via trade. But, my wife sat on the couch and, we were watching the game on Wednesday night. And she's like, what time's the game? 8 o'clock. Well, that always means, she doesn't make the third period because she just, she doesn't make it to 11 o'clock, right? So that's a little bit of a bummer. And she said during the pregame skate, she's like, has Ovechkin disappeared? I haven't heard much about him lately, And then they come on and say, he's only scored 2 goals in his last 11 games or whatever. And it's like, well, yeah, he kind of has disappeared. And, I almost tweeted out, my wife thinks Ovechkin's going to have a big night, or like this is going to be a coming out party. But it's pretty obvious. I mean, I thought both teams were a little lackluster in the first period. I mean, it wasn't like they came out flying and you mistaken this game for a playoff game. It certainly didn't look like that, right?
No, the intensity wasn't there from a lot of guys. I totally agree with that assessment. And Alex he's not skating. I mean, he didn't get a shot on net till I think the last 3 seconds of the game, and then he had one in overtime. And I don't know if he's saving himself for the playoffs. We all talk about last season and several seasons before he go into the playoffs with some type of injury, whether it was a groin or a back. And he seems to be just trying to avoid that. At least that's what I'm hoping because he just doesn't look motivated right now. The last 2 games against Montreal and Philadelphia, games you think he'd be up for, he wasn't. And he did play well in Carolina on Friday night, but for the most part of these last 11 games, he hasn't been emotionally invested in these games. And, there's still 51 games to go. As much as, I get emotionally invested or the fans get emotionally invested, especially when it's against the Flyers, because it's like Caps Flyers is like Ravens Steelers to me, as you well know. And if when you don't put an effort out against the Flyers, then I'm going to call you out. And that was the case last night. And Kuznetsov certainly a problem child. On the positive side, we got Andre Burakovsky back last night. This 3-game scratch did wonders. He was all over the ice. I thought he was the best player for the Capitals on Wednesday night.
Yeah, he looked motivated.
Yeah, he was playing. He was getting his shot off quicker, something I've blogged about, you and I have talked about, that his release takes too long. He was firing the puck quickly. He scored a goal. He had an assist on the second goal. I really thought he should have gotten a chance in the shootout. I understand why he went with Williams. but I had to think Burakovsky was next up, and he was good, and so was that Lars Eller and Jacob Perrana. That line was good. They needed that third line to develop. If there was a positive in the game, and there were some positives, let's talk about that. I thought that line was outstanding. I thought the Beagle line was very good, and Braden Holtby was just outstanding in net. I mean, because the Flyers had a bunch of chances. There were a lot of defensive breakdowns, and he was a big reason that the Capitals just got that game to a shootout.
He is Ed Frankovic. You can follow his journey out at Ed Frankovic on Twitter. He covers all things Caps. The Caps losers in a shootout 3-2 late into the evening on Hockey Night on Wednesday. And they play so many of these national games now because they're so well thought of. They had lost to the Canadiens. Now, the nice vibes of 6 in a row and good vibes, now they're losers of 2 in a row, and certainly losers of 2 in a row against teams that they would figure to have to play in much longer series in April and May. I think that's the discouraging part of this thing, and they're going to have Tampa on Friday night. I will be down at the phone booth for that game, and then they kick off for the holiday over the weekend at the Island on Tuesday night next week, and then a home-and-home with the New Jersey Devils Thursday at the phone booth, and then on New Year's Eve up in New Jersey. So a lot of East Coast cooking here. No real, it's just trains, no planes or automobiles at this point. But not a good look here this week. And I would think that Barry Trotz has some concern. And it's never a good thing in the postgame when he's calling out his star players and saying, "Where are you?" In sort of the same way that it wasn't a good thing in Toronto for the goalie to say that their play was embarrassing. But that's what's on their mind after they lose.
Well, you and I talked about this earlier in the week that this is going to be the assessment period between now and the trade deadline, and I said it started with that Flyer game on Wednesday night, and frankly, several guys laid an egg. And I think the big concern right now is scoring. They are not scoring goals. The magic number is 3 goals. When they get 3 goals, they're undefeated. I think they haven't lost a game when they've scored 3 goals. And part of that problem is we thought we had that second-line center issue solved with Kuznetsov, and since about mid-February last year, the guy's pretty much disappeared.
Well, he cost him the game on Wednesday night, literally, right? I mean, he
was the reason they lost on Wednesday night. He gave the puck away, and he gave the puck away a couple more times. And if it wasn't for Holtby, they lose in overtime. He's just playing with no confidence. His decision-making in his own zone, and they made excuses for him with that bounce off the boards, and I'm done with excuses. I'm not buying it. It's 4-on-4 right there. You have to have awareness where you are in your own zone. And at that point, I would have preferred he skated it out. There's more ice. He's good at that. If he turns it over, at that point, he has his defenders in position to help him. The other option would have been to go high glass and just dump it out to center. Instead, he tried to pass, and they're saying, well, the boards hit a seam and it bounced out. You know what? I don't want to hear it. This is hockey. This is a man's game. You can't make a mistake like that and give a 2-1 lead away like that with less than a minute in the period. And that really left a sour taste in my mouth. I can't think the coaches are happy with it. I can't think the coaches are happy about the way they're not getting a second line providing scoring right now.
Tampa Lightning on Friday night, Eddie. A little preview on that. Certainly, one of the best players on earth not there. This would be what the Capitals would look like for a long stretch without Ovechkin, much like, the Ravens without Joe Flacco last year or something like that. But this is a diminished version of the Tampa Lightning on Friday. This has got to be a red victory at home, right, before the holiday.
Certainly Tampa is in a bad luck stretch, and they just lost their number 1 goalie, Ben Bishop, for 3 to 4 weeks, injured against the Red Wings earlier in the week. So they're going to go with Vasilevsky and net, who's really struggled. He played really well in the playoffs last year, but he has really struggled this year. In addition to missing Stamkos, they're missing probably their most dynamic player in Nikita Kucherov. He has been out of the lineup. So they have some guys out. Now they still have some guys who can play. Jonathan Drouin. They've got Tyler Johnson. They got Victor Hedman on the back end. You would think this is going to be a red victory, but Tampa's still a good team. They're well coached by John Cooper, and the Capitals are going to have to come out and play with some emotion. And I haven't seen that emotion. I haven't seen it in a while. And maybe it's the dog days of the season here because we're 51 games from the playoffs. But at some point, these guys have got to start playing with some more energy. They got to start playing a little more physical, put a little more heat on the opposing team's D, and they're just not doing that right now, and they're too easy to play against in my mind right now.
He is Ed Frankovic. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Ed Frankovic, as well as emailing him, ed@WNST.net. Ed, get out on the ice this weekend with some hot cocoa and your kids. Enjoy your weekend. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and your family. We will see you on the other side of this thing next week when hopefully we're talking about a Raven victory over the Steelers as well. I know you're nervous about that.
Well, certainly Merry Christmas to you and Jen and the whole WNST family. And I'm looking forward to Ravens winning that game and making Christmas be all worthwhile from the football side of things.
Yeah, I told Flacco, don't curdle my eggnog, you know. Hey, man, take care of yourself. We'll see you.
All the best, Ness. Take care, buddy.
You got it. Ed Frankovic covers the Caps for us. He is our Caps historian, insider, and blogger. I will be at the phone booth on Friday night. We'll check in with Barry Trotz early in 2017. We're also going to do a swabbing with him here locally in Baltimore as well. Had a chance to see Ted Leonsis and the Monumental crew up in Baltimore doing the AFL team stuff with Omar Brown. So we'll be doing some of that stuff in January and February leading up to their start of the season in March as well. So we got you covered around here. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. We will be joined by Mike Wallace at Adams Jeep in Aberdeen on Tuesday night. We'll be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry up there. Had a great time earlier this week with CJ Mosley. You can hear that in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault as well. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It is brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month. Go ahead, eat the cookies this weekend. Have some pie. Have another, rack of whatever you're having, some more sides. Do it up. Have some eggnog. Drinking a cup of cheer, some Yuletide cheer. Planet Fitness is there. It's $10 a month. You can get in shape next year. No problem. Go to Planet of Triumphs, learn more, and get some inspiration there as well. I am a very available individual out on the internet. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. We stream live in HD on Facebook as well as on our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.